I'm so happy you joined us today. Today we're going to be doing our next iteration of the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild block of every other month. And as you see how our quilt is coming along, our newest addition is this spiky border. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. But I also want you to think about, what we're going to be doing next time. We're going to be doing these little daisy stars, and then these little hump blocks, and then this will be the last one. These spikes are a great border to add to any quilt, and you could also just use them as just a block. They come together super fast, so you'll have so many spikes you'll be able to border lots of quilts with them, but they're really fun. So let's go upstairs to the sunshine and we'll do the tutorial, okay? Okay, so for this spiky border, you're going to need a background fabric. This is Goldilocks. It's this funny mustardy color that I like. You'll need whatever your spike colors are going to be, and this will be a great project for like a scrappy border if you want to do a scrappy border. But I chose to use this aqua gradient dye. It's by Cotton and Steel. It's a gradient. It fades, from dark to light, so you get a bunch of different tones. So it looks like you used a bunch of fabric, but you haven't. And you'll need a straight edge, rotary cutter, scissors. So let me tell you the measurements that I used for my border. For the background, I cut this 8.5 inches. So just cut a couple strips, 8.5-inch strips. For the spike points, if you want them all to be the same height, that's fine. I like the variation because I think that gives it more interest. So I cut my spike points in 6.5-inch for the longer, and 5. Well, this is actually pretty short, but I made it too short. So cut 6.5 and cut 5.5 inch. And you can get some good height variation in that. Okay, so after you've done that, then we're going to subcut it into rectangles, and then for the star point, or for the, excuse me, I've got stars on my mind. So for the spike points, we're going to cut those in half diagonally. Okay? So now we're going to cut our fabric to make our spiky border. We're going to cut the background into rectangles, and those are going to stay rectangles. But we're going to cut the spikes into rectangles, which will then become triangles, okay? I like to vary my size. You certainly can keep it all at one specific size, but I like the variation. I like how it gets, makes it more interesting looking. So cut them between 3 inches and like 1.5. And it doesn't have to be exact. It's not any special sort of, science to it. Just cut them. And I'm using my short squatty ruler because I can't find my long one. I cleaned up my studio downstairs and it's gone. Does that ever happen to you? You clean up and you can't find anything? I thought I was being organized, but I'm not. All right. Almost done. So when you're cutting your spike points, think about if you want them all to go in the same direction or if you want some opposite directions happening. I think when I started this, I wanted them all to go the same direction, but I cut them wrong and they go in both directions, and I like that. So it was a happy mistake. So just stack up all your background and set those aside. Now if you want them to go in both directions, what you're going to do is you just leave the fabric folded over Because when I cut with it folded, you know, selvage to selvage. So, and if you want the angles going both directions, then leave it folded when you do the cut. So if you leave it folded, then you're going to get triangles going in 2 different angles. But if you leave the fabric pretty side up and you cut multiple layers, make sure then they're all going to be going the same direction if you cut pretty side up. See how those are all going that way? All right, just a tip. I just cut them in all directions so it'll be a little quicker. So we're going to lay out our spiky bits on the background. And when we go to piece them, you know, this is what we want it to look like, right? It's going to take up the bottom parts of these rectangles. So we have to piece them like this. So we'd be sewing down this line. If you put it up too high, pretend like we've already sewed it, and we flip it over, you know, that's not a good angle because you're going to have to cut off so much of your rectangle to make it square up. So always make sure you've got at least 1/4 of an inch hanging below and at least 1/4 of an inch up at the top. And then when we piece it, it'll work out better. This is not perfect. It's not perfect at all. So we'll do it like so. Yeah, see how that works better? That covers the whole bottom part of this rectangle. And then we'll do the same thing for the ones going in this direction. So these taller spikes, they can cover more space, obviously. Yeah. So I just lay them out as I go. I chain piece the whole stack. I've got all my triangles laying here. I just lay them down on the rectangles as I'm sewing, and it gets done so fast. All right, so we're just gonna chain piece all these little spikes onto the backgrounds. It's really easy. Use a 1/4 inch seam and just go to town. So this is a good time to listen to a podcast you like, or watch a Netflix show, or I don't know, plan your menu for the week. Whatever you got going. Chain piecing is just wonderful for just, I don't know, I just like to turn off my brain and just work. And so I don't have them all stacked up all at once. I just stack them up as I go. So just continue in this fashion until they're all done. So next we'll do some ironing and trimming, okay? So after you've sewn all your little points together, you're gonna cut them apart and then press them. So I quilt for a lot of people. A lot of different quilts. I get amazing piecers and brand new piecers. And what I've noticed is some people don't press. They don't press their blocks as they go, and I don't understand that. You should definitely press. It's what'll make your quilt look nice and makes the seams nice and flat. All right, so we press them we press them just like we sewed them. That sets the seam. And then you flip them over and you press them again. So I've got some questions about this wool pad that's on my little ironing board. It's really thick wool, and it just really makes for a super, super flat seam when you press on it. For the first little while it smells like a sheep, but I love the results of pressing on a wool pad. So when all these little guys are pressed down, we're going to trim them and then piece them together in our strips. This is, you know, the same kind of way we did our wonky stars last time, but this time we're not going to make another angle. We're just going to leave them like this. So we're going to trim off the excess fabric from behind, and then we're going to remove this yellow piece of background. Okay, so now we're just going to trim them. And you trim off the background. Definitely trim off that background. If you don't, it'll cause a lot of buildup and for thick seams later on. Use your ruler, don't freeform it. Alright, so just do that to all of them, and then you're going to sew them together. And I just leave them all in a big pile, and I sew 2 together, and then 2 becomes 4, and then 4 becomes 8. You just keep sewing them together until you have your long strip, and that's your border. So, you know, let me know if you have any questions about what we've done today. Spiky borders are pretty awesome. Next time we'll have these little kind of funky flowers. They're super cute and they're really addictive to make. I think you'll really like them. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you're having fun with your block of every other month.